please drop us a line either by email, or you can just register on the Google form that I will post on the chat in a few minutes. Okay, so that was the introduction to Axelnode, and now I would like to open the stage for Nikki and Gaurav from Hachiko District. Again, thank you so much, you both, for coming today. So I'm going to stop sharing. This is just a few photos from the many contact, the many videos that they've been publishing on the social media. As you can see, they are going to all the cool places in Tokyo, all the interesting restaurants people don't know about and would like to go to. So very special experiences in Tokyo. So let's hear it from Nikki and Gaurav. Thank you so much.
Okay, hi everybody. My name's Gaurav.
And my name's Nikki.
And yeah, we are two of the people behind Hachiko District. Just gonna keep it pretty casual today. Gonna start with the introduction of myself. Then Nikki can give an introduction of herself, and then I will kind of tell you about the company and how it got started and all that fun stuff. So yeah, my name's Gaurav Gupta. I've been in Japan for 6 years and 4 months. I moved here. I'm originally from the US, so when I graduated university, I got a job here as a consultant, actually. I studied business in college, and I moved here basically right after I graduated. And yeah, I was a salaryman in Japan, suit every day, riding the crowded train office until midnight. That was my life for like 2 years, and I never really had any, video background, social media. I mean, I use social media a lot. I like to go on Instagram and Facebook to talk to my friends, but I never had, worked for a social media or done anything with that. But I always thought it was super cool, and since I was like a young kid, I always like wanted to make videos or just kind of wanted to express myself on the internet. And coming to Japan really like kind of changed the way I think. Back home, I'm from like this small town, and I would have never thought to, pick up a camera. There's nothing really to film back home. I mean, there's like a Starbucks downtown. That was like the coolest thing growing up, but nothing much to really, get my brain flowing. But when I moved to Tokyo, just seeing everything around me, all these cool shops, all these cool like restaurants, attractions, all this beautiful nature, history, it really got my mind thinking. And I'll jump into how I started Hachiko District, but I'm going to let Nikki talk a bit.
Okay. So I'm Nikki. I grew up in the UK. My mom is Japanese and my dad is British. So I grew up in the UK, and I basically came to Japan 7 years ago, mainly with the aim of improving my Japanese. I didn't really learn too much Japanese when I was a child, only really coming back to visit my grandparents in the summer holidays. But other than that, I never really learned how to speak the language properly. So that was the main reason why I decided to come to Japan. And yeah, I initially was only going to stay for 6 months to a year, and here I am 7 years later, still here. I feel like a lot of people have a similar experience where they sort of weren't planning on staying, and then they're still here, and it's great. And yeah, so after graduating, I graduated from university in London, and after I came to Japan, I enrolled into a Japanese language school and learned Japanese, and then I decided to start working in Japan, and I started working in the restaurant industry. I've always had a really deep interest in food and cooking, so yeah, I was really interested to see how the restaurant industry kind of worked, and hospitality worked in Japan. And after that, I also worked in the travel industry for a little while as a travel consultant for a very small startup travel company. And then about 2 years ago, I found Hachiko District. A friend actually recommended it to me. And yeah, I kind of was able to find my niche working in this media company where I can really share my love and experience and passion for Japan, as well as food. And yeah, it's basically kind of combines all the things that I wanted to do. So yeah, that's where I am at this point. And yeah, so I thought I could talk a little bit about Hachiko District, and then Gareth can go back to talking about sort of the details of how he makes the videos. So Hachiko District itself, it became a company in 2019. So actually it's not even been 2 years yet. We make viral video content on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Facebook is our main platform, but yeah, we've been growing YouTube and Instagram as well. So at this point, we have 17,000 followers on Facebook, 17,000 followers on Instagram, 10,000 followers on YouTube, and we have over 600,000 followers on Facebook. And in terms of, for example, monthly views of each video, that hits like 2 million per month. And a lot of our audience is people that are wanting to come to Japan, or people who've been to Japan but want to come again. And of course, expats and people that are already in Japan right now and looking for new experiences. So yeah, over to you, Gary.
Cool. Yeah, just a little bit how I started it. So as I mentioned earlier, I was a salaryman with I never really had a background in social media, but just being in Japan as like a foreigner, I also speak Japanese, and I got really familiar with all these cool things to do around Tokyo. And I always thought like, man, like if people like back home, I would just think about my friends back home. I would like tell them like, yo, there's this shop downtown where you can eat all you can eat sashimi for like $10, and just there's all you can drink bars downtown, and there's this bar in Ginza that sells $3 drinks, in the most expensive neighborhood in Tokyo, but there's somehow a bar that's selling these $3 drinks. There was just so many cool things that my friends would be so amazed. They're like, wow, like I didn't even know that stuff was in Japan. And I was like, yeah, like maybe I should try to like capture some of this stuff. So I just really wanted to film, but I didn't even have a camera or anything. So what I started was I just started like making random videos. I had an iPhone 6, and I would just film like anything I thought was like interesting. And I made a YouTube channel, and I would throw it up on my YouTube channel. I didn't have any subscribers. I remember when the iPhone 7 was being released at Apple, I went with my Apple Japan. A bunch of people lined up outside. They were camping out all night. And the girl in the front of the line, like she does this every year, and she had this like massive pillow of Steve Jobs. Like, I don't know, people like knew about her from the news. So I like went there with my iPhone 6, and I asked her if I could interview her with my iPhone, and I did, and I put that on YouTube, and I got like 10,000 views. I had no subscribers. I was like, wow, that's insane. This video got views. And then I basically just started messaging any media company I could find on Facebook, online, email, private messaging, calling them. I just said like, hey, I'm in Japan, and I made this video, and it went kind of viral, and I want to make some more videos for you guys. And after I messaged like 100 different places, like a few companies were like, okay, sure, you can make a video. And I like pitched them some ideas. The first video I ever made for Facebook, there was like a Kit Kat coffee shop. This was like in 2016. So I went there and just like filmed a bunch of the different Kit Kats they were selling. They had like 50 flavors or something of Kit Kats. And I made that video, and I gave it to this Facebook page, and I posted it, and it did really well. And then I just continued making videos for them as a freelancer. My first real viral video was also in 2016, again, just with my iPhone. I went to McDonald's. They have this item called, what is it, Shaka chicken?
I don't know.
Okay, it's like this dollar. It's like a dollar bag of chicken, and you get a spice, and you put the spice in the bag, and you're supposed to shake it up, and it makes this really loud noise. And I don't know, I just thought that was kind of interesting, and I had never seen anything like that before at McDonald's. So I literally bought a dollar chicken, filmed it with my iPhone and my friend, and I made this like 40-second video for this Facebook page, and it hit like over 1 million views. It blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, like why didn't anyone do this before me? Like anyone could have went to McDonald's with their iPhone and filmed it, but no one really did. I did it, and it's viral now. And just from there, was filming videos with my iPhone for this company, a few other companies, making viral videos, just kind of learning along the way. I eventually bought a camera. I learned everything about using a camera just from watching YouTube videos. Like, it's amazing how much you can learn from YouTube now. Like, people put out like really, really high quality, like free tutorials on anything you could ever imagine about a camera. And then it just comes down to, going out and practicing. And, after kind of like establishing myself, making like different viral videos for a few different companies, I hit like 300 million views through my videos in a year and a half. Everything was organic. I had the confidence then to like take the next step and, establish Hachiko District. I had a few connections I made doing freelance. I knew some people who could help me. And fast forward, now it's been almost 2 years, less than 2 years, and we've grown to like over 700,000 fans across all of our audiences. It's a lot more organized now. Actually, yeah, why don't we talk about some how we make the videos? We forget
Oh,
it.
yeah,
It's like
sure.
so much more organized now how we do everything. Before I used to just go into the shop unannounced with my iPhone 6 and just film. Now it's a bit different, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could say, yeah, I mean, when I first joined, the company had probably only just been established, like it was a few months old,
Yeah,
I
just a
think.
few months old.
Yeah, it was a super, and it's a super small team even now, but yeah, I think we structured it a little bit better. We have a system of how we contact the clients. Most of the places we find through either press releases, but of course also through friend recommendations and social media. And yeah, we contact and we kind of make it very clear there are certain things that we have to make sure that the shoots go smoothly. Like Garv is very, very specific, obviously, about how he wants to shoot everything so that we make the best videos for everyone to watch. So, there's always been, there have been problems in the past, when we haven't communicated that properly. So it's always been a learning curve for us as well. To basically, how do we tell people what we want, but, also politely. So we have like a whole form now, which they have to read and check and confirm that they've understood it. And yeah, and then when it comes down to the actual shoot day, it's usually about a 2 hour long shoot. We start, it's quite formulaic, I would say. Like, we start with like entering the venue, and then we do the kitchen scenes, and then we do the eating scenes. And that formula works really well. I think we've established that
And
that's how it
we aim to
works.
do like 2 video shoots a week. If we're traveling for a project, if we're like in Osaka just for a few days, we'll like really stack the video shoots and do like 5 or something in a
Five
tour.
in a row.
You like it's pretty insane. And at the video shoots, I'm in the shoot videos sometimes. I'm always filming, so it's kind of hard to be in the video. It just kind of slows it down because I have to use the tripod. But Nikki's our main cast, and then we have a few different cast members, just kind of like friends who like did modeling before, and I reached out to them last year. We usually invite like 1 or 2 of them to each video shoot, and a lot of people like. If you've seen some of our videos, a lot of them are food based. So some people think like, oh, we only film food, but no, like the first thing we look for is it viral, and if it's viral, we'll film it. And the thing is about food is a lot of food is viral. We have filmed some different attraction videos. There's this company called Team Lab. They make these like really immersive like experiences where you can like explore these like massive like almost like warehouses that really like you know you can like I don't know, how would you describe it, like
It's
activates all your senses.
yeah, it's a whole immersive experience combining digital art and things that you can physically touch. There's like a projection mapping.
There's like water you have to walk through, like things like that. And we have film videos there, and they also did really well. But yeah, a lot of it just comes down to if it's viral or not. Do we say this?
Amazing. So yeah, we have some questions from the audience. So Lee, we will get to your questions right away, but I see a question that kind of leads up from what you were talking about Team Lab. So can you tell us more about the most interesting places that you've been to, some recommendations of some cool restaurants, the coolest hotels, like what are the places that left the most impression with you that you've visited?
Yeah, sure. So I was always kind of into like Japanese like RPGs growing up. That was one of the reasons I was into Japan, and it's pretty cool. Like maybe less so these days because of COVID, but basically like every few months there's like different like themed like restaurants. They're all like pop-up restaurants, themed restaurants and cafes of different like animes and video games. And man, one of the coolest ones I ever filmed was Tokyo Ghoul, if you guys are familiar with that anime. They had this like pop-up cafe in Ikebukuro, and man, like they like recreated the dishes so perfectly from the anime. Like, if you guys have seen the anime, there's like a scene where after he becomes a ghoul, he's trying to eat like a sandwich, and he can't eat the sandwich anymore because he no longer can eat human food. So there's literally a menu item. It's called Mazui sandwich, and it's a sandwich designed to taste terrible. I don't know who would actually want to eat it, but it tastes terrible. And there's like a whole like written comic that it comes with. It's showing you like Kaneki's like first experience eating it, and I just thought like, wow, like this attention to detail is just like insane, and fans of like this anime would be so happy. Another thing, really cool anime place I filmed. This is not a pop up. From like Studio Ghibli, Totoro. He has like a cream puff shop in Shimokitazawa. And the coolest thing about that is, yeah, the cream puffs look really, really cool. Maybe you guys have seen some pictures on Instagram of those like cream puffs, but the coolest thing is the people who run the cafe is like his actual brother, and he was literally there, and he looks like him. He looks exactly like him, and I was like, wow, like the founder's brother is running like this cafe with his wife. I don't know. I thought that was really, really interesting, and people might not even know about that. And one more cool thing we did was in Kyoto. They had like a Pokemon themed like hotel room. We went there last year and filmed it. And
Yeah, I saw that one. Nikki was wearing the Pikachu outfit.
actually, yeah, we went all through that. And our other cast member was dressed as like Ash. And yeah, it was super cool. There was like different like there was like a massive Snorlax just like in your bed. It was so big to the point where like you don't even have much space to like sleep on the bed. Like the Snorlax is there, but it was just hilarious. And you know, the wallpaper, the cups, the plates, everything was just Pokemon. And I like Pokemon, so I thought that was like really interesting. Just kind of, yeah. So yeah, that's the one we filmed Mimaru. Um, yeah, if you want to talk about a few,
Yeah,
maybe some
okay.
restaurants or something.
So many. I mean, I don't even know where to start. But actually, one which we did last year was called Venus Rico, which is basically a nail salon. But the thing about that place is that they do artworks, like freehand artworks of pretty much anything that you want, but it's mainly like anime or like pop culture references. And they freehand it in the most insane amount of detail. Like I've never seen that level of detail, and just on your nails. I was like sitting there for 4 hours, I think, and they had two nail artists, like one person on each hand, and I was just like sitting here like
it still took 4 hours,
and it still took 4 hours.
Like I mean, these people are like real artists,
Super
essentially.
artistic. Yeah, I mean they
are
are
artists. Like
basically.
it was so perfect. Her design.
Because all you had to do was, you just find something that you like on your phone, show it to them, and then they basically literally just like look at that picture and draw it onto your nail. So it's like 5 centimeters or something.
She did a Demon Slayer.
Yes.
Kimetsu no Yaiba.
It was really, really
It
cool.
was so cool. I mean, they painted it to the point where it looked like they put like seals on there.
It looked like it was just like a print or something.
Yeah.
They just stuck it on, but it was literally hand painted.
Yeah.
And then the other place was Offkai, which is they're both in Akihabara, which is sort of the otaku center of Tokyo. And yeah, so Offkai is a hair salon, and they specialize in basically otaku haircuts. So if you want to become like Light from Death Note, for example, that's what one of our colleagues, he became Light from Death Note, and I became Misa from Death Note. So I mean, I have brown hair, but they basically bleached it entirely and like totally did a whole new look. And yeah, it was a crazy experience.
And she like, you guys looked exactly like them. Yeah. It was scary, honestly, like how perfect
it was
Nikki and our other cast member Real looked like. Yeah, some serious talent.
And then what else? I mean, the food that sticks out the most would probably be the video that we uploaded last week, which was Happy Steak. And that was a super sort of premium luxury steak restaurant in Hokkaido, in Niseko, which is if you're familiar with, is basically like the ski resort town. Super popular.
Up north, yeah.
Has like the best snow, arguably maybe in the whole world. But if you like skiing and snowboarding, and yeah, Happy Steak is basically how do you even describe it? It's probably like one of the best steaks you could ever have.
Like it's like this rare Wagyu that they found after searching through different
for 30
fun.
years.
So if you guys
Yeah.
don't know, Wagyu just means beef from Japan. So I mean, there's like low tier Wagyu, and then when a lot of people say Wagyu, what they're referring to is like the higher tier, like A4 and A5 Wagyu. This is like the most expensive and highest quality Wagyu. So they basically went through like different like local Wagyu like cattle farms essentially, and they found the exact type of beef and texture they wanted and worked out some like exclusive deal to like become a get that meat. It's not really available. Like they don't sell this meat commercially. Um, and yeah, it was amazing. Like yeah, can't even describe it. It was so good.
We have a full article about it on our website if you want to get
wow.
full details.
Like how the different types of meat are different from each other, and
Yeah.
And why, for example, why they chose A4 rather than A5, for example, because A5 is supposed to be the best, but they had very specific reason why not to use that.
There's another going off another Wagyu one. This is closer to Tokyo. There's a restaurant called Midtown Barbecue in Yokohama. We filmed a few videos there, and we even did a collaboration with Mikey Chen from Strictly Dumpling there last year. That was super fun. But the cool thing about this restaurant is it's like actually run by some American guy who has been like smoking and barbecuing meat his whole life. But what he does is he takes like the traditional American like barbecue techniques and he applies them to Japan with like Japanese meat, which is super cool because you can't really get a lot of this meat back home. So he's taking like his knowledge from back home and using it in Japan where he can get these exclusive meats. And he does this like 20-hour smoked like A5 Wagyu brisket. And yeah, I'm not sure if you guys like brisket. I love it, but man, this A5 Wagyu brisket was just like on a whole nother level, like melt in your mouth, so rich, so tender, just a whole different taste from like normal brisket. And he does other like dry aged steaks, A5 Wagyu, things like that. All super good if you're into meat, barbecued meats.
Wow, amazing. And what about more traditional Japanese food like ramen or sushi? Like I saw your video with this ramen with a lots of stuff on top of it. There was the very spicy ramen, and there was the ramen with a bunch of pork in it. So, and I also saw you in the Kaiten Sushi restaurant where you kindly showed us the behind the scenes of the Kaiten Sushi and how it works. So, from any of those, like, what would you say was the best ramen or the most interesting ramen or the best tasting ramen out of all the ones that you've tried?
So I mean, for ramen, like we filmed
so many.
Like we actually have a playlist on Facebook that is just called ramen because I mean it's crazy like how many ramen kitchens me and Nikki have been inside. We filmed so many. I don't know what's your like favorite. It's hard to say. There's so many.
Really
most memorable.
Most memorable. Okay. Well, I would say okay, one which we so I would say there is one called Ahuri Karakurenai. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with the bigger ramen brand Ahuri, but they kind of do user flavored, so Japanese citrus flavored ramen. And they actually interestingly have vegan options as well, so it's really welcoming to anyone, to foreigners, whatever your dietary whatever you like to eat or don't like to eat. But their Afuri Karakurenai is basically, it's like their spicy version, and it's one standalone shop that they have in the underground area of Shinjuku Station. And so basically it's Afuri, but it's mixed with basically spice. And you can choose your spice levels, but it also has that kind of yuzu citrus base. So it's sort of really flavorful and then spicy at the same time. And the pork that they had was just amazing there. Like it was like melt in your mouth. Very different from regular char siu that you might find at another ramen restaurant. So that's one which definitely would recommend. I mean, it's in Shinjuku, so if you're in Tokyo, very, very convenient to get to as well. Yeah. But there's so many.
There's so many. Another going off the spicy. I mean, the most memorable ramen I ever filmed. It wasn't really edible, so I don't really know if I can recommend it.
it.
It's called a Go Maryu. It's like a small ramen shop. They have one in Shin-Okuba, which is right next to Shinjuku, and then there's also one in Gotanda, which is also in Tokyo, pretty central. You pick your like level 1 through 5, and level 5 is like, I mean, it is so spicy. They put so much different like spice powder, like ghost pepper, scorpion, all kinds of these peppers into the broth, that the broth like essentially becomes like a paste. It's no longer a soup because there's so much like dry spice in there mixed up. Then it's topped with like even more chilies, and yeah, just like a few bites of that. Yeah, I mean, I felt sick, honestly. I felt sick, and then the next day was even worse. That was absolutely insane. There, that's up to level 5. That was level 5. Up to level 3 is like really good, but level 5 is kind of more for like food challengers. Um, that was crazy. And one we kind of did recently is called Mensho. Mensho, is that pronounced it right? They actually have a few locations like abroad too. So it's a large ramen chain. We went to their flagship store in Tokyo, and we filmed a Wagyu ramen. And what was really cool is they had this like really nice like block of Wagyu. They cut like really thin slices of the meat, and then they just like put basically the raw meat on top of the ramen, and the broth just cooked it. And yeah, that was absolutely amazing. And it was like really reasonably priced as well, you know, for something with Wagyu around like, I think it was like 1,800 yen or something. So I highly recommend that as well if you guys are ever in Tokyo and want to, you know, eat ramen and also try Wagyu at the same time. Very unique, that ramen. Yeah, and that's ramen. Another, you want to talk about that fugu restaurant?
Right. Yeah. So
It's a super traditional Japanese.
super traditional.
Mhm.
It's in Asakusa and it's called Genpin. Spelling is a bit interesting. It's Guenpin, Genpin. And yeah, they specialize in fugu, so blowfish, which I'm not sure whether you guys know is basically, depending on how it's cut, it's basically poisonous. It has a poison sac inside of it. And if it's cut incorrectly, then you know you're going to eat the poison and it's lethal. So the thing about any fugu restaurant is the chefs have to train and they have to get properly qualified before they're even allowed to you know, serve fugu. And they allowed us to go behind the scenes of Genpin and show us, you know, how exactly they cut it. He like showed us the poison sac, which has the poison in it. And what was really interesting is they have a whole, once they've cut out the poisonous bit, they have to literally lock it up inside of a like lockable container.
It's like, yeah, some like nuclear waste box. Yeah, some biohazard box that they like lock it up. They literally locked it up, and then somebody comes and picks it up like the next day.
I think it's a specific, you know, company that deals with this kind of, you know, biohazard waste.
It's very dangerous. Like
yeah, so that was quite intense. And then eating that, like seeing that and eating that immediately afterwards, knowing that, you know, life or death kind of situation. But it tasted really good, and obviously we were fine. So I recommend that place if you wanna try some real authentic Japanese cuisine. And the other good thing about this place is they basically serve it as a course, so you can kind of choose. You can enjoy blowfish in lots of different ways, so like fried or sashimi, also like in a hot pot. And they also had sake, like Japanese rice wine with a fugu fin in it, so it's sort of a little bit savory almost. And that was really interesting to try. I'd never seen that before. Like,
yeah, that was the first time I had seen that. Another cool thing that's in Tokyo, which, you know, we film a good amount, and maybe just because I'm American, I personally find it fascinating. There's like a lot of like all you can drink places like everywhere in Japan, and some are like really like cheap. It blows my mind how these places make money, honestly. Like there was one I filmed, actually this was I think a month or two before you even joined. This was a while ago. I don't know if you guys have heard of like Waseda University. It's one of the large universities in Tokyo, and like the college town around it. You pronounce it Takadanobaba. It's right in Tokyo, very central area. They have this izakaya, which is kind of like a traditional Japanese style restaurant. And for 1,800 yen or something, it's like all you can drink and all you can eat for like 3 hours. And it is insane, like this place. Like inside, it's just like full of different like action figures and pop culture, and it's just like a rowdy like college environment. And, fried food and beers, like for 3 hours, just going crazy. And I mean, I've never seen anything like this before, like back home in America. I don't think it'd be allowed to. I don't think we'd be allowed to have something like that back home. But it was just insane, and that video went super viral. It had like 3 million views, and yeah, a lot of people think Tokyo is really expensive, and it can be really expensive if you go to really expensive places and stay at really expensive accommodation. But if you're like kind of like smart and a night out, you spend at one of these places and you stay at like a smaller hotel chain or something.
Or a capsule hotel.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
which one did we do?
So have we filmed any in Tokyo? I think we filmed one in
Plans
Tokyo.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, if capsule hotels are, I mean, sort of as the name suggests, it's basically you stay in a it's not even a room, it's literally a capsule.
Like a pod.
It's a pod. Yeah. But the great thing about it is obviously it's very cheap. It's gonna be like 2,000 to 3,000 yen.
Yeah, a night.
And it kind of has everything that you would need as at a hotel. It has the bathrooms. It has like a lot of places have communal areas where you can like work or study, free Wi-Fi, etc. And also the nice thing is that quite often they have separated it for the men and women, so women can feel safe. The men aren't allowed into the women's area. Like it's usually there's like a key lock type thing, so you can feel secure as well. And yeah, it's just super convenient. Like most of the time, you don't really have to do an advanced reservation. Even you can just show up. So yeah, I'd recommend it. Just trying it out, see if you like it.
It's nice. It's nice. Like
it's clean. It's nice.
And like inside your pod, there's like a lot of them have TVs. There's like outlets to plug in your electronics, and it's considering a pod, it's like pretty spacious. It's not like you're cramped up. Like you have a room to move around, and it's kind of like a nice little like private getaway at the end of the night or something, or you can kind of unwind and get ready for your next day in Japan. And yeah, super cheap. When you check in, you can leave your like large luggage. They have like lockers to use. You don't have to like have your luggage like dragging around with you in your pod. It's really designed for like being like just convenient and just cheap, and it's a really cool experience. Yeah.
So would you generally say that because a lot of people are very afraid to come to Japan because Japan has this expensive image, like everything is so expensive. But would you say that it's possible to travel in Japan on a reasonable budget? Like from the experiences that you had, are any of these like super expensive, or are they pretty cheap considering when you compare it to other countries? Like, can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like the longer I live in Japan, the more I realize like how, I don't know, I also had that before I moved here. I thought Japan is going to be like extremely expensive, and everything about it, eating out, going out, meeting up with friends was super expensive. But no, that's not like true at all. Honestly, yeah, if you find like an accommodation like a capsule hotel, you can even stay at like manga cafes. If you guys aren't familiar with that, it's basically like a library just full of manga, and you get like a private room where you can sleep. There's a computer in there. You can order like super cheap food from like a menu in your room. You can actually, they're designed for that you can sleep in them, so you can stay there for as long as you want. They're probably like $30 or $40 a night. If you find an accommodation like that. In terms of eating out, yeah, obviously some of the restaurants you mentioned are quite expensive. So maybe on your trip you can do one of those things. Like the food is quite expensive. Obviously these wagyu restaurants do get up there, but going to these like all you can eat, all you can drink places are very reasonably priced and extremely fun. I saw you linked that Ginza bar. Yeah, like $3 drinks in Ginza. I mean, I don't know what the prices are back home for you guys, but $3 for a drink at a bar is insanely cheap, from what I'm used to. And you know, those like that sushi restaurant you mentioned, like each plate with like 2 pieces of sushi is like around 100 yen. Very reasonable price. You know, you go in there and spend like 500 or 600 yen, and that's like a proper meal. I think yeah, Japan has this very expensive image, and there are a lot of expensive activities to do in Japan. But I would say for like the average traveler, millennial traveler, for example, you know, it's very reasonable.
Yeah, and I would just add to that as well, like traveling around Japan. Um, the Shinkansen, for example, the bullet train does tend to be quite expensive, but if you are, for example, a tourist, there are like JR passes, which makes things cheaper if you're traveling for a specific period of time. And also there's like the night buses as well, which are super, super cheap. And, you know, they'll leave like, for example, Tokyo at like 10 p.m. and you'll get to Osaka at like 6 a.m. or something. So you get to sleep on the coach, and then yeah, you arrive in new city, and the coach itself is really cheap.
It's like 30 bucks or something. It's very cheap.
Very reasonable. So yeah, that's another way of traveling around, and also actually the cheap flight, the local airlines as well. You know, if you're wanting to go to like Okinawa, for example, or up to Hokkaido, the flights are really not that expensive, I would say. You know, maybe like under $100 for a return flight, you know. So I think Japan has done a really good job of encouraging people to travel. Obviously, that's probably not a good thing in Corona times, but pre-Corona, you know, they had a lot of deals for trying to encourage people to, you know, get out of the city, explore places. And yeah, hopefully after the pandemic, you know, they'll bring that back as well.
And then just getting around in Tokyo is very cheap. I mean, basically when you arrive at Tokyo has two main airports, Narita and Haneda. You can pick up a like metro card. It's called like Suica. There's another one called Pasmo. They're the same thing. It's 500 yen to pick up the physical card. Then you charge the card with money. You know, you can put like 1,000 or 2,000 yen in it. And then when you ride the trains in Tokyo, you just swipe the card. Going, for example, from Shibuya to, you know, Ginza or Ikebukuro or something, it costs like maybe 160, 170 yen. It's very, very cheap. And then like the really cool part is when you're leaving Japan, you can actually return the 500 yen card you got and you get your 500 yen back. So you could keep it also for a souvenir or if you're going to come back to Japan, but you can also just get that money back. So traveling within Tokyo is very, very reasonable. Taxis are quite expensive, but there's really no need to take the taxi. The trains, you know, they run from like 5 a.m. to like 12:30 a.m. So unless you're like out super duper late, you can take a taxi. But my favorite way of getting around in Tokyo is walking. Like it's so much fun. Just like, so I do recommend if you guys visit Japan, you get like data or Wi-Fi on your phone, which again you can do at the airport. A lot of companies run out like portable Wi-Fi, and they cost like maybe $10 or $15 a day. As long as you have Google Maps, you can get anywhere with walking. And the cool thing about walking is like you find all kinds of cool stuff on the way. Like Tokyo doesn't really have like zoning laws. So I know like back home where I'm from, you can't, like in the US, you can't have like a dentist next to like a Starbucks, for example. It's just like there's like zoning laws. Different types of businesses need to be in different areas.
What?
Yeah, you can't have that. So like in Japan, you're like walking around, you find all these cool cafes, you find the mall, you'll find a temple, like just through random walking. As long as you have Google Maps, I would say up to like an hour walking somewhere is totally reasonable. Great exercise, great fun. Yeah, my favorite way personally.
Yeah, I totally agree. Actually, like the just down all those tiny little side streets.
There's
like
always something. It's
there's always
crazy.
actually something.
It's so crazy.
And like just even finding like a tiny like bar or restaurant or cafe, like you would never see it on social media or something, or you know, on Time Out, but just walking around and you'll find like all of these like tiny hidden gems that no one knows about. And it's great. Definitely walking around this.
And then like if you get tired from walking around, there's always a train station nearby. Yeah. You can always get back to your hotel or wherever you're going from this train station. You might have to take this train to another train station and, you know, do one transfer, but there's always a route back and there's always a train station around. So you don't ever have to feel like you're lost or It's super convenient. I just highly recommend, getting the portable Wi-Fi. It's very easy. You can just pick one up in the airport, and then you're basically set to go.
Amazing. So, do you have any other tips like that for like making your trip more easier? Like you said, picking up the Wi-Fi. I
Mhm.
also know there is a SIM card,
Mhm.
or any other tips like how to make the best time in Japan. These kind of tips.
I think doing a little research on the places you want to go beforehand, it does help. But I don't agree when people try to like plan out their day from like 8 a.m. to like 10 p.m. with like back to back to back to back to back to back to things. I recommend you pick a few things you want to do in one day, and the time in between you might find like a cool shop that you want to go to, or you might want to spend longer at one of the shops. I think that makes it just a lot more fun of a trip to Japan. In terms of other tips, if you're ever like hungry and you want a quick snack, jump into a convenience store, grab like a sandwich. The sandwiches at the convenience stores are great. They're like, 100, like 200 yen or something. They're pretty big. You can get like fried chicken in the convenience store, all kinds of drinks, coffee. They sell everything at these convenience stores, and they're literally everywhere.
Yeah, like you will literally sometimes find one brand like 7-Eleven, and then like opposite, on the corner next to it, a
Mhm.
different one, like Family Mart is another
So,
major convenience store. And the other great thing about that is that the train card that Gareth mentioned, the Pasmo or the Suica, you can use that. You don't have to just use that for the trains. You can use that in a lot of other places. So you can pay for your food at the convenience store with the Suica as well. A
you can
lot
use
of
it like
places,
everywhere
a
now.
lot of places, like maybe not like regular restaurants, but yeah, some cafes, like a lot of supermarkets, I think as well. It's super convenient just having that, and you can charge it up at the station or at a convenience store, and yeah, then you can pay with that for a lot of things.
You can even charge it up with like Apple Pay and Android Pay, which is what I do, which is really convenient. You don't have to carry cash around. So yeah, I recommend just adding it to Apple Pay or Android Pay, like maybe throwing like you know 10,000 yen, which is like 100 USD on it, and then you can ride the train, you can eat out with it, you can basically do anything. You can actually go shopping with it. Um, yeah, it's super convenient. Another cool thing is we mentioned convenience stores, which are quite inexpensive. If you actually go into a grocery store, which are also quite common, they also sell like quick food and quick coffees and things like that. It's even cheaper. So yeah, grocery stores, they sell a lot of food ready to eat and a lot of drinks. So if you ever need like a quick bite and trying to save a dime, grocery stores as well. Super, super convenient.
Amazing. Yeah, I remember when I was living in Japan, the Suica card I was just amazed because in Israel, we also have something called Ravkav. I'm sure everybody, all the Israelis here know about the infamous Ravkav. So we can only load it in the train station, and
Mhm.
there's only specific places where you can buy it. And it's so hard to use. Like, in Japan, you put the Suica card and the gate immediately opens. In Israel, you have to put it, you have to wait like 3 seconds. Okay, did it work? Okay, it didn't work. Okay, let's try again. So it's amazing how in Japan everything works so smoothly, and I'm sure that everybody here, when they travel to Japan or if they already travel, they will experience just the easiness of traveling around, getting around. Great. So thank you so much for your talk. A very fascinating point. I've learned a lot for sure. I posted in the chat a few of the videos that you've made, that you've mentioned during your talk, and I hope everybody here will go around and try to see them. So there are a few questions. So first, Lee Matan has been waiting very patiently to ask her question. So I will read the question that she wrote right in the beginning of the meetup when you both introduced yourselves. She wants to know how you two got to know each other. Like I think Nikki mentioned it really shortly, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it was kind of sort of by chance, I guess. My friend was freelancing for Hachiko, and she basically had to she can no longer work for Hachiko District, so she asked. I had just quit my travel consultancy job and was sort of between jobs looking at different options. She basically asked me if I'd be interested, and she introduced me to Garth. And actually, yeah, she introduced me, but she didn't tell me that it was going to be a shoot. So the first time I met you, I think
You didn't know?
No, she didn't tell me.
Yeah.
She didn't tell me that I was actually going to be in the video the first time I met.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was but it was fun. So yeah, it was a good impression. So I stayed basically.
Yep, that's just through our
mutual
friend met Nikki.
Wow, amazing. I hope you were. So you came and like you weren't dressed for a shoot. You weren't wearing makeup for a shoot. You just came along.
Luckily, I made an effort, so it was fine.
That was like some pizza video too.
Yeah, pizza.
That was fun.
Yeah.
You know, Nikki, every time I watch your videos, I'm so worried that you will, because you wear such nice clothes always, because you're very, you know, a fashionista wearing very nice clothes. And I'm always very worried that, you know, you're eating all this ramen, and, you know, when I eat ramen, like all my clothes become like just a big oily slob. But I'm very worried for you when you're eating all this greasy food.
Luckily, they give you aprons in a lot of places.
A lot of places do give us
aprons to wear. They give, that's another cool thing. If you guys ever go to a ramen shop, just ask for an apron and they'll give it to you. And I really recommend.
Really?
Yeah, or you're gonna get like noodle slurp juice everywhere, all over your shirt. You might not see it, but you'll smell it later. So yeah, definitely an apron. When you wear the apron, you'll see how messy you are because the apron shows you exactly all the stuff that got on, which you wouldn't have noticed on your shirt. So yeah.
Yeah, I saw your video visiting the crab shop with all the crab, and you guys were wearing gloves and the big, the big apron. That was amazing. Okay, let's move on to the next question from Lee. What's the stronger on your field content these days? Is it YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok?
So yeah, I mean, we've always kind of been Facebook first, and like, simply put, before I started Hachiko District, the main company I freelanced for was mostly on Facebook. And you know, depending on what social media you're on, the videos need to be created differently. A video that is designed for Facebook to go viral on Facebook is not necessarily going to go viral on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. So with that being said, I basically learned, you know, how to make videos go viral on Facebook just by making hundreds of different videos. And yeah, that's just what I'm most comfortable with growing. And so we definitely still focus on Facebook. The Facebook video is our highest priority. You know, Facebook's still the largest social media in the world. I know a lot of people don't believe that anymore, but by the numbers, it's the largest social media in the world. Facebook also has a monetization platform similar to YouTube's like program. YouTube's program, what is it called? YouTube's program. Okay, yeah, well, YouTube monetization. Facebook has one. It's called like Facebook ad breaks, and yeah, you know, they pay you for your video depending on the views, like YouTube. Then I would say next is probably Instagram. Instagram doesn't really have any monetization or anything, but it's just like a great, you know, image for your brand. It's very popular in Japan, and it's growing a lot more popular over in the world. I think it's going to overtake Facebook eventually.
Yeah.
And then YouTube also. YouTube's always been super tricky for us because, as I mentioned, we kind of make the videos for Facebook. Thing that goes into that is a lot of people don't watch Facebook videos with audio, so most of our videos don't have talking in it. YouTube's different. You need talking, you know, in YouTube videos for it to really go viral. So lately we've started making like a different series just for YouTube, designed for YouTube. Like, you know, just taking the Facebook videos and putting them on YouTube is not very smart. And then there's TikTok, which just kind of blew up. TikTok wasn't really a thing when I first started Hachiko District. And I just kind of like, I feel like an old man almost. Like, I don't know too much about TikTok. It's like, you know, what's the generation?
Gen
Z. Like, my younger cousins back home know more about TikTok probably than me. And I think TikTok has a massive opportunity. Like, if you guys plan on starting a media company in this day and age, I think TikTok should definitely be in your top priority list. We just like personally don't really have the expertise in TikTok, and we don't really have that much extra like time to be focusing on TikTok because our other social medias take up so much time. So yeah, I would say Facebook, then Instagram, then YouTube, and TikTok we don't really do anything on yet.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your very informative answer. Okay, so let's see. We have some more questions from some participants. This is a question that one of the participants raised, but I think we discussed before that we would maybe like you guys to talk about it. How would you say that COVID-19 really affected Japan, the tourism industry, um, or generally speaking? Like I know here in Israel, we had a lot of lockdowns. Businesses were closed. A lot of businesses, went bankrupt and were closed. So we really want to hear about the situation in Japan.
Yeah, so it's a difficult one here because legally speaking, the government cannot enforce a lockdown. So they've had a few state of emergencies, which what that basically entails is, for example, asking restaurants to close a little bit earlier. So right now we're in a quasi state of emergency, which I think a lot of people don't know is what the difference is between that and a state of emergency. But basically, the shops are closing or restaurants are closing at 8 p.m. rather than 10 p.m. or midnight or whatever their usual opening hours are. But in terms of, for example, people not being allowed to leave the house, or for example, things like that, there's zero restrictions in that sense. They can't enforce it, and they can't really. There's no punishment, for example. I know back in the UK where my family are, people will be fined if they were found to be leaving the house for no particularly good reason. But yeah, in Japan, there's really not really been that big of a difference, I would say, on the personal, private level. But of course, for the hospitality industry, for the travel industry, and for food, for the restaurant industry, I think it's been a really, really, really huge hit, obviously, especially with, people anticipating with the Olympics coming, it's supposed to be last year, and it's going to happen this year, but there aren't going to be any foreign spectators. They announced that, I think last month. So, for the past, 2 or 3 years, they've been ramping up, trying to, in anticipation of all of the visitors that are going to be coming in the Olympics, and now none of that is happening. And so much of tourism was based off of foreign inbound travel, and so that's it's gone from like 90% down to 0%. So I think it's really, really, really hard for businesses, and I mean also restaurants as well. The fact that they constantly have to close early. They can't have the full staff coming in because they can't pay all of the staff to come in. You do see restaurants closing down. Even some of the places that we filmed in the
So
past.
they got quite a bit, like during the pandemic, have shut down. A lot have shut down. If you walk through like Harajuku now, I would say like 30% of the shops are just shut down now. Having a shop in Harajuku, the rent costs are insane. Like that's one of the most well-known areas in Tokyo, and now there's zero tourists basically, which were like a large chunk of their like customers in the past. So like a ton of the shops over there have shut down. It's definitely been rough. One thing that a lot of places that are surviving, one thing they've like shifted most of their focus on, or more of their focus on, is like now offering takeout.
Deliveries.
It's quite interesting. Like if you go to like a shabu shabu restaurant, which is like Japanese hot pot, a lot of them have like takeout now. Like that was never a thing when I moved to Japan. Going to that's like a type of cuisine where you sit down with your friends and enjoy like an hour-long meal of like meat and vegetables that you dip in the hot pot in front of you. But no one can do that anymore like before. So now they're offering takeout. I would say most shops offer takeout now, which was just not a thing before. Because can't really go out to eat.
I see. So they kind of try to change up a bit so they can survive. Yes, we had this in Israel as well. A lot of businesses that before they only had you could only eat in the restaurant, but now they have takeouts or these services are trying to accommodate to the new situation. Okay, so actually we're out of time, but I see some people are still here and there are still some questions. Would you like to answer the questions for a couple of more minutes, and then we can wrap things up?
Yep.
Great. So our next question is, where should I stay in Tokyo? Are there any must-see places? Like where would you recommend it if you are going to come to Tokyo and stay in Tokyo? Where would be the best place to stay?
I think it would depend what you want to see. But as we mentioned before, traveling within Tokyo is very, very easy and convenient and very quick. So I wouldn't say that you necessarily have to, for example, stay in an area that you also want to explore. Depending on where you are, the accommodation can be quite expensive. Having said that, I guess, central hubs in terms of convenience would probably be places like Shibuya or Shinjuku, but kind of anywhere on the Yamanote line. So the JR Yamanote line is it's the green line. It goes in a ring around Tokyo, all of the kind of key areas of Tokyo, and it goes through all of those. So any of those locations would also be very convenient as well, I would say.
It is, yeah. I mean, a lot of stations have that train coming, that train. So yeah, I guess it's kind of confusing when you're like researching your trip. You read about all these different neighborhoods like Ginza, Shibuya, Ikebukuro, and then when you're reading about them online, you probably think it's like far away. You're thinking like, oh, if I'm staying in Shinjuku, Ikebukuro, Ginza is going to be so far away. Like I have to stay in the area. No, that's not true at all. Like these areas are all like quite close together with the train. So as long as you're in Tokyo near a train station, I would say it's fine. And if you want to have a little bit more convenience, near the JR Yamanote. When people ask me, I personally recommend staying in Shibuya. There are some like cheaper accommodations in Shibuya. Why Shibuya is like one of the most happening areas, a ton of restaurants, a ton of nightlife, a ton of different things to do. And the cool thing with Shibuya is you can stay in Shibuya, and during the day you can go around Tokyo, you can go visit the temples, everything through the JR line, and then at night you come back to your hotel, you rest up a bit, and then you can just walk to Shibuya and go to a restaurant and have some drinks or take some pictures at the crossing. So yeah, I like Shibuya.
So you recommend the Shibuya as like this hub where it will be nice to stay in. I see. Okay, so this is the last question. This one is from Ben. So when traveling inside Japan, what airline would you recommend? Traveling inside Japan.
Traveling inside Japan. There are quite a few. So like, for example, both the big, JAL and ANA, which are the major Japan airlines, they also have their own low-cost carrier versions as well. So I think Air Do is one of the, I think that's ANA's low-cost carrier airline. But there's so many. There's Peach as well. I mean, yeah, there are so many actually.
You don't really need a flight though in Japan unless you're trying to go somewhere really far from Tokyo.
I mean, unless you're trying to go, from all the way from the south to the north or to Okinawa.
I would recommend the bus or the bullet train over the flight.
I see.
Just because, it takes time going to the airport and waiting for your flight. The train is a lot quicker and the bus is a lot cheaper than any of those options. So yeah, unless you're trying to go super far. But yeah, the flights are quite cheap.
Yeah, there's a lot of options.
But yeah, I mean, we went to Hokkaido like last month. I think we did like we did Air Do.
We did Air Do, and that was kind of peak season, so it was maybe a little bit more expensive than usual. But even then, I think it was maybe 40,000 yen per person, which is what, like
200 each one. 220, yeah. Yeah, I mean that was a little expensive, because it was peak season, but
But usually it's pretty cheap. So you're saying unless you're trying to go really far inside Japan, it would be best to take the bus or the bullet train and not bother with the airplane because it takes a long time to get to the airport, and also you have to do the luggage check and all of that, so that takes up a big chunk of your time. And I guess even though the flights are pretty cheap, like I used to fly with Peach a lot, I guess still just the time that you're consuming on this is just not worth wasting your trip on. I see.
There for a limited time, I would stick to like ground transportation. It's just way quicker.
I see. Okay, great. Unless anybody has any other questions, I didn't see any other questions in the chat. So I think we can start saying thank you for everybody, especially thanks you too, Nikki and Gaurav. Really, thank you so much for your interesting talk. Really fascinating. I know I learned a lot. I'm sure our viewers learned a lot as well. And thank you, everybody, all the participants that came today to see this event with us. Thank you so much. And we
Thank
hope you
you.
will join us for our next events as well. So I put the link in the chat for our Facebook group if you guys want to have any more information about us. And previously, I also posted the link for registering for if you're looking for a job in Japan, then you can use our Google form. So thank you guys so much, and hope to see you again in our next event. Thank you again, Nikki and
Thank you so
Gaurav. Thank you so
much.
mu2
Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you so much. Bye.